I don't think I strayed from my diet once. I'm one of those people that I put so much pressure on myself in life in general that I thought if I strayed from my diet, even like a square of chocolate, then I've failed.
This is in character 1 Apple 1.
Hello, I'm Richard Gadd. I am the writer, actor, creator, and exec producer on Half Man, and I'm going to chat about how I got into character. I wrote episode 1 back in 2019, then Baby Reindeer was commissioned into a full series, so I put it on the shelf for 4 years. But all the way through Baby Reindeer, I never stopped thinking about it and how much I wanted to return to it. I just had the creative impulse to sort of explore, I guess, broken masculinity. I thought if you take two men and you take them in their present as sort of corrupted adults and you flash back to their childhood and you contextualize all the stuff that they learned, all the prejudices that they soak up in the 1980s UK, which is a very unaccepting time, and see how those kinds of prejudices and learned behavior got them to where they are as adults. I just thought that was kind of an interesting idea. I like to try and change as much as I possibly can for a role. I wouldn't call it like method acting or whatever, but I like to sort of first be like, how does this character kind of feel in their body? You know, Baby Reindeer, I felt like it was important for me to be quite slight, and I slimmed down to 68.8 kilograms to do Baby Reindeer. And then at my heaviest for Half Man, I was close to 110 kilograms. I needed to be big, heavy set. I needed to be a physically imposing presence. And I also thought that it would help me as an actor in a way if I felt that in my body. If I felt big and I felt like I was towering over Jamie Bell, and every time I saw him, I felt that that would not only help me as an actor, but make for some arresting visuals, which I hope that it. I had a nutritionist and I had a personal trainer, and I had a company in England actually make meals for me to the calorie specifics that were required, and they sent them up to Scotland and I ate them at specific times. I would have a little alarm on my phone that would go off and that was the time to eat. I suppose it's that idea, really calorie loading, really trying to add a bit of fat over the muscles and bulking up that way. I always wanted Ruben to be real. You know, I never wanted him to have a sort of Hollywood six-pack. I never wanted him to look like a gym goer in the purest sense, because I think like he actually, as a character, doesn't care about that kind of body image stuff. He's heavy set because he almost feels the pain of his life in his body, and I wanted him to be real. The word I kept coming back to with the personal trainer was, I want him to be burly. I want him to feel burly, you know, like heavy set. And so a lot of that was a lot of eating, and then when it came to the filming, we actually tapered off a lot of the eating and actually reduced the carbs right down. So then, of course, I was working out 6 days a week, constantly, and also writing, so my body was in a lot of pain quite a lot of the time as well. It was very intense, but I felt it was all necessary for the visuals of the project.
Come here. Yeah. Come here.
I remember I'd always say to the personal trainer, kind of, it's not enough, I need to go bigger, I need to go bigger. They'll say, trust me, you're growing. But I could never see it because I guess you look in the mirror every single day, don't you, to some capacity, and you don't see that kind of incremental change. But if I bumped into somebody I hadn't seen for ages, they would always say, oh, you're looking massive. And I'm like, really? Really?
Come here, look at me. Look at me. That's it. Look at me.
I worked very hard in the voice of Ruben. You know, the voice is very different to what I'm doing now. He's much deeper, much more gruff. I wanted him to have an almost kind of like an animalistic quality, like in a lot of ways. So there's a lot of grunting. Sometimes like the boar would pop into my head in a strange way, like that's, you know, like a, I don't know, like a weighty sort of animal of some kind. And even when scenes where he was like joking about or being funny, there's a couple of scenes where he's kind of just being silly or making fun of Jamie. I would actually still try to get in the headspace of sort of immeasurable pain that I think he is the undercurrent in which he exists.
All at once.
I think like one thing that I've always taken, even in the violent moments of Baby Reindeer as well, is that I want things to feel real. Sometimes you can watch a film that kind of purports, and I love these films, like they purport to be real the whole way through, and then they get to a fight scene and, you know, like people know how to punch and people know how to slap and everything just suddenly becomes choreographed. There are scenes where on the blueprint, where sometimes like, okay, he comes in, he ducks, he dives, comes in with the left. I'm like, whoa. Ruben's not a sort of purebred fighter in that respect. He is an epitome of psychotic rage. And to me, the two things were very different. It's violent, it's animalistic, it's messy, it's completely messy. Get them down, stamp, kick, scream, everything. There's a lot of talk about toxic masculinity, and I suppose one of the show kind of sets out to explore not just the toxic aspects of it, but why are men drawn to each other in such kind of complicated and sort of mutually empowering yet mutually destructive ways. And I thought, well, for something to be toxic, it needs to be intoxicating first, really. I mean, drugs are toxic, but they're intoxicating to begin with. And they lead to that toxicity later on. And I thought the same kind of exists with masculinity. You know, you meet these two guys and the bond that they form in their childhood is intoxication. If done right, I hope so, the audience will feel that along with them and root for them and want to almost be a part of their weird, messed up dynamic. And that, I think, is the kind of bind of like male camaraderie, and it's a very strong, powerful force, almost transcendental. And I think a lot of men are drawn to each other to feel a sense of almost like sense of mythical kinship, and I think even now I find it hard to explain. But you know, I think of some of the male relationships I've had and the close bonds I've felt with men, and the feeling that we're shoulder to shoulder and we could take on and do anything in the world. I felt like there was a version of the show where you dive straight into the toxic masculinity aspect and you don't really contextualize why men are so drawn to each other in the first place. I think that the mistake that a lot of, like, I suppose, violent characters are on screen is that they're violent all the time, or that they know they're violent. Like, I really believe that Ruben doesn't know he's violent. I believe that he has a switch in his head that goes off when he's triggered by something. That I just thought it was kind of true to portray somebody who is charismatic. And then when you lift the veil, they are capable of all these things. I think it's interesting. I think it can make you very confused as a viewer in a way where it can make you confused in human life when somebody you love or adore does something out of character. You know, where's that come from? And it makes you like, I don't know who this person is. I think these characters test your patience at all times, but at times you fall back in love with them and then fall out of love with them again. And I kind of think that's true to life and a lot of friendships. I find masculinity in male relationships even more complicated than I did when I set out. And I think, you know, my shows are for people to take their own meaning from it. So I think with Half Man, all I ask is, well, I just hope that people enjoy it, really. I'm always just a guy looking at a viewership asking them to enjoy it.